Imagine that you're a foster parent. You've got two kids in your house, one biological son and one foster son. Now, they're roughly the same age, and it's a Friday. That means soccer games. Now, you just barely get these two out the door on time with cleats and jerseys and shin guards and water bottles and one inhaler, but you have to stop at the end of the driveway and go back because somebody won't be seen with your pink water bottle. You have to go back to the one with Spider-Man. Now, as you're filling up the Spider-Man water bottle, your phone rings. It's a social worker. And she tells you that there is a child at the office with nowhere to spend the night. And she's wondering if you can come pick them up just for tonight, she says. Now, what do you do? Now, you can make that work, right? I'm not saying it would be fun or that it would be convenient or glamorous, but you could drop your two boys off at the soccer field, then run to the office and pick up this kid, and then to the store to get a change of clothes, pajamas, toothbrush for this kid, because you know that they probably don't have those things, and then to get a pizza, and then back to the field to pick up your boys, then home, and get everyone fed, bathed, and in bed. Right? Not going to be easy, but, you know, humanly possible, right? On the other hand, isn't it somebody else's turn? Right? You're already caring for a foster child. Shouldn't someone else step up in this situation? What do you do? Do you say, sure, social worker, it's not going to be convenient, but service before self, I will make my evening and my kids' evening a little bit unsettled and inconvenient so that we can give a place for this foster child just for tonight? Or do you say, like my mother is fond of saying, no, social worker, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part? Do you hear how it's kind of an impossible choice? Unfortunately, not that long ago, foster parents from our community were put in that very situation on a regular basis. When I became aware of this problem, the situation in our county was there were about 250 foster children in our community. That number, and in fact all of the data that I'll reference today, is available from Partners for Our Children. That's the research group in the School of Social Work at the University of Washington. So 250 foster kids in Whatcom County, our county here, and those foster children were cared for in 81 licensed foster homes. 250 kids, 81 foster homes. Now, that's not quite the whole story. See, of the 81 foster homes, only 25 of them are what's called active. That is, they still answer their phone when they see the weird 4-digit code that tells them it's a social worker call. So, 250 kids, 81 foster homes, 25 of them active. Of the 25 active foster homes, 8 are full, 4 only want babies, 4 only want legally free children, that's children available for adoption today, and 2 are on medical leave. That leaves, in the whole county, 7 foster homes, still answering their phone when the social worker calls, currently accepting placements with no age, gender, or legal status restrictions. How often do you think those 7 homes get put in the situation we opened with? Well, as a member of one of those 7 homes, I can tell you it was about 3 times a week. How much longer should we expect those 7 homes to remain active? What do you think? Do you hear the cycle? We don't have enough foster homes, so the ones we have are overworked, so they stop answering their phone, so we have fewer foster homes. Listen, I know that's grim, but I have good news for you today. It's taken a lot of work by some very dedicated volunteers, but I can tell you that we have eliminated that situation we started with. It no longer happens in our community. And I want to tell you how we did that. It has taken lots of work and effort. After all, hope is a verb with its shirt sleeves rolled up. We started in February of 2014. I went to a meeting about something else. Frankly, it was a neighborhood meeting, and I just happened to sit down at a table with a social worker. We struck up a conversation, and she told me about that scenario that we opened with. She told me about how it happens often in our community. And she also told me that given about 3 days to work, almost always a social worker can find a foster home that matches the needs of the children really, really well. They just need time to do the work of finding the right place. About 3 days. So we started calling this situation the 72-hour problem. And we started looking around at communities nearby to see how are other communities responding to the 72-hour problem. And don't you know it, 2 counties over was a community that was in a very similar situation to our community. Flood of emergency placements, not enough foster homes, and the way they addressed it was very innovative. They created a facility staffed by volunteers where the children new to foster care would spend their first 3 or 4 days. While they were there, they received new clothes, toys, books, shoes, backpacks, blankets, stuffed animals, whatever they lacked. That facility was stocked with and provided to the children. While the children were there, they get access to medical care, nutritious meals, and they go on all kinds of fun outings and just have a good time together. And that buys time for the social worker to find a foster home or a relative of that child, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, who is ready and eager to care for that child. So, Yahtzee, we've got a known, well-defined problem with our foster care system and a solution proven to resolve it. We were in business. That social worker introduced me to a few of her friends who also care about child welfare. And we started our work. Our first step was to incorporate and start fundraising. We chose the name Skookum Kids. A lot of people ask, what does that mean? Skookum is a Chinook word, and it means healthy or strong. And we liked it because, up here in the Pacific Northwest, our Native American communities and culture is very strong, and we wanted a chance to hat tip at that. It also gave us a chance to point out any opportunity we get that 40% of the children who enter foster care in our community are Native American. So Skookum Kids it was. Now we needed a place. We needed a location to build our facility. Well, a member of our startup team happened to know there's a church in the community that had a parsonage that was sitting vacant. So we approached the church, explained what we wanted to do, and they voted unanimously to give us the use of that building for 2 years, rent-free. So our next step was to upgrade. Yeah, exactly right. So our next step was to upgrade that facility, to bring it into compliance with the 193 pages of government regulation that provide oversight to a program like ours, from 7 different agencies, by the way. So there was a lot of work. We had a lot of upgrades and improvements to make. Kitchen floor, some electrical, appliances, new furniture. We had lots of things to do. And though it was, we estimate, about $15,000 worth of improvements and upgrades to that house, when it was all done, we finished in May of 2015. We were out of pocket only $1,000. The rest of the labor and materials were donated by community partners who were eager to help us get started. So, yeah. So our next step, so we know what we're doing, we know where we're doing it, now we need the team of volunteers. That was our next step, to recruit and train a team of volunteers who would actually staff the house. And I gotta be honest, this was the part I was least confident about. Because, caring for foster children, well, I think we all agree should be done, isn't glamorous work. And I wasn't sure how many people would sign up, to be honest. I wasn't sure if I wanted to sign up. But I'm happy to report that today there are 86 volunteers trained and able to cover shifts at Skookum House. We opened last summer, and the first kids that we cared for was it was a family of 4. siblings, a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And a family like that, a group of siblings of that size and with that age spread, it's just unheard of for them to be placed in a single foster home. They're almost always split up. There just aren't enough people with 4 extra beds in their house. But it seemed like these kids, somewhere in the process, a social worker or someone had kind of coached them about that, because they seemed to be aware that they were likely headed into different foster homes. But boy, let me tell you, they loved the 3 days they got to spend together at Skookum. We had a grand old time. We went to the park, and we went to the doctor, and then we went to another park, and then we played dress up, and we played with the action figures, and we played with the Wii. They had a ball. And then on Monday morning, our phone rang, and wouldn't you know it, 3 days was enough time for the social worker to find a single home where all 4 kids could be placed together. That's what Skookum Kids does. We create enough space so that social workers can work magic. We keep sibling groups together. We take pressure off of foster parents. And we're starting to see the statistical impact of our work too. Remember I mentioned that when we got started, that there were only 81 foster homes in the whole county with 7 unrestricted vacancies. That was 26 months ago. Today, there are 165 foster homes in Whatcom County with 17 unrestricted vacancies. Now, those numbers are not sufficient. That is not enough foster homes to care for the 250 foster kids in our community. However, 100% growth in 26 months, that's progress. So where do we go from here? Thank you. Where do we go from here? Well, there's one thing I've been reminded of repeatedly throughout this process, and I want to leave it with you today. That is, curious people change the world. You see, we didn't see anything different in the foster care system than anyone else. There's lots of very smart, very generous people working on foster care. And we didn't arrive and suddenly have some new special insight. We saw the same problems everyone else did. Results from the foster care system aren't what we would like them to be. Foster children don't graduate high school at rates comparable to their peers. They're incarcerated later in life at rates much higher than their peers. Why? Well, we asked why repeatedly until we got the answer, because we've always done it that way. Here's what I mean. Results from the foster care system aren't what we'd like them to be. Why? Well, because there aren't enough foster parents and social workers to care for them. Why? Well, because too many of them quit. Why? Well, because we place unreasonable demands on them. Why? I don't know. We've always done it that way. When you reach that answer, when you use the question why to explore the world around you, and eventually, inevitably, you reach the answer, I don't know, because we've always done it that way, that is pay dirt. It's time to set up shop and get to work. And when you have done enough work to change the answer, you will have changed the world. And it will be time to start asking why again. And even though you'll be exploring a completely new world, a world that you helped create, it will still have its fair share of inequity and inefficiency, and you'll have to stay curious, you will have to stay humble, you will have to ask why repeatedly until you reach the answer, because we've always done it that way. Curious people are the only people who ever change the world. Thank you.